Welcome to the Invested Teacher Podcast with Kyle Pierce, Matt Bigley, and John Orr.
Get ready to be taught as we share our successes and failures encountered during our real-life lessons, learning how to build generational wealth from the ground up.
Welcome, Invested students, to another episode of the Invested Teacher Podcast.
Welcome, folks. Welcome. We are back. Obviously, you're listening to us. We're back with another episode. Yep. And in this episode, we're going to talk about a bunch of ideas that all revolve around you, figuring out how much is enough to put away for your investment. We're going to think about your mindset around that. We're going to think about your budget. We're going to think about what jobs could be available to you to make extra money so that you can achieve, financial independence earlier than you thought, earlier than what your retirement date is set for you. We're talking all things investment and achieving that financial goal.
Yeah. And, I think why this is so relevant, especially for the three of us is, the three of us both began in very similar places, right? Teaching in the classroom, going into some different roles in coaching and consulting. Matt was going down the path of administration before he sort of, pumped the brakes on that idea. And, all along that journey, we were doing some different things to try to find a way to, we'll call it like bump into additional funds to get us going on we'll call it a side investment journey, because the reality was in Ontario here, as teachers, we are investing because we have that pension plan, right? That pension plan, it's a strong pension, and it is essentially doing it. You could do it with your eyes closed. Money is coming off of your pay, and of course, you're getting the benefit of like a match sort of situation going on and a defined benefit pension at the end. So for a lot of people, they're like, I am investing. I'm teaching, right. I'm going, and then I can spend the rest of my money on my lifestyle or whatever it might be. But for us, we were thinking like we wanted to start building some wealth. I don't know, maybe it was control. Like we wanted more control over the future finances that we would have. And, maybe in our minds thinking, hey, here's your defined pension plan. Like, what if it's not enough? Maybe a little bit of fear. We know that I'm the guy, like I want to be secure financially. I have no idea, but all three of us have throughout the years been doing some other things. We're going to call them side hustles in order to generate more funds, but not to necessarily improve our lifestyle now, but rather to create or find funds that we could then leverage and put into investments of some type. Matt, when you're thinking about this and thinking about your journey, what did that look like and sound like? And I guess my question to you is, what was your reason for thinking that maybe you wanted something, I don't want to say more sounds like greedy, but like different than say just the set and forget golden handcuff pension plan that, we are so accustomed to in education?
Yeah, I think we can all agree that, teachers are well compensated, they work hard, and there's some terrific financial benefits to being a teacher, the pension among them. And you could really have a solid standard of living as a teacher. But if I dare say, with, at the risk of coming off as being like out of touch, I think there's some limitations on what one can achieve or realize with these golden handcuff type jobs, be it a police officer, teacher, nurse, and on and on. And so I think it really comes down to realizing that, with a side hustle, with something extra, you can generate investing returns that can certainly change the wealth trajectory of your family, but also generationally that of your kids as well. And we constantly get inquiries from teachers looking for ideas on how to generate more money. And, within teaching, dare I say, like we're a little bit limited in our mindsets about what we consider to be those kinds of activities. Like among my motivations for becoming an administrator, and I stopped one course short, hit the emergency brake, and I've now exited teaching altogether. It was one of the only ways within education you could actually make more money. Now, I started that path because I love teaching and naturally thought that, being promoted and getting more responsibility was what I wanted, but there was also a financial incentive as well. Some teachers teach summer school or
Yep.
AQ courses. I've personally never done either because for me, the ultimate luxury in life is time.
Mm.
And I didn't quit teaching after I started a side hustle, which became a full fledged entrepreneurial career because I didn't like teaching. It was because the only thing I couldn't control was my time. And by being an entrepreneur, I was able to both vastly exceed my teaching income and also control my time. Those two things put
Mm.
together to me were an unbeatable combination. And so, having spent all that time as a teacher, working on other side hustles, trying to think of things as an educator I could do that were in a conflict of interest, it was pretty tough. It was pretty tough to come up with anything that didn't include giving up your summer to teach summer school, teaching an AQ course. At one point, I was looking at teaching overseas because they pay really well in places like Saudi Arabia, to go over there and be a teacher or getting a promotion. I actually think this is probably a product of our education system that we've been a little bit brainwashed, that university was the only correct pathway. And
Mm.
we regurgitate that to our students now, and we never really learned about being entrepreneurs either as high school students or as university students, despite even in high school, we offer a course called entrepreneurship. Like it's a pretty thin take on what actually entrepreneurship is all about. So I think my mind has been blown by entrepreneurship, and it's exciting because the two of you have started down these paths in a new way than some of your previous entrepreneurial activities, which are also going to be exciting and fun to dissect here too.
For sure, for sure. And and I think when we are in the teaching roles or in our full-time roles with thinking about how do I get involved in investing and how do I have enough money for going down that route, like you guys said that you are doing it with your pension, you are doing it other ways, like you know I think we talked about this in our first few episodes in thinking about like that wealth building blueprint and how do you create this gap of money that can help you get there. Because I think if we want to retire early, we want to build this wealth machine. One way to do that is to set aside money from your budget and redesign your budget. Like we talked about, your pay yourself first so that you are meeting the goals that you want. Like we talked also about personal beliefs. Like what does your lifestyle look like? How are you kind of setting aside and planning financially for the lifestyle you want? Like if I want to go on 2 vacations a year, am I setting aside the right amount of money from my personal budget to account for that? And if I'm thinking about retiring early or becoming financially free early to get that time, like Matt's talking about, like that of freeing up my time, am I backwards mapping that? Like, do I have enough currently to say achieve all of these things that I want my lifestyle to look like? And if not, then I need to figure out how to redesign that budget to fit it. So it might mean restructuring, but it also might mean, like what you're saying, what you've done, what all of us have done, is realized that our income from our teaching job wasn't enough to kind of create the lifestyle that I think we all three of us wanted, and realized that we needed to kind of go down another pathway to bring in more income. And I think for me, that journey wasn't, I don't think it for me started with what I think maybe what I heard Kyle say, that you were always thinking that way. For me, I wasn't thinking that way. I don't think I thought about, creating more money for myself, but until I started building a business with you, like it was like, hey, all of a sudden, I think I was just excited about building businesses, and I've
Right.
come to realize that that's where my passion lies. Is that I love the operation and building something from nothing, and that part was really exciting for me. And that all of a sudden, through our math consulting and our math professional development resources, Make Math Moments, have allowed us to have extra income. And then with that extra income started making me think about, how do I best utilize
Right.
this extra income? Like, how do I invest it now that I have it? Because I think I also became obsessed with this, like, this compounding interest machine, right? Like, how do I take this money, put it into this thing over here, this machine, and that machine is always going to generate me some money, and then I can spend that money, and because the machine is working, I'm going to get it again next year. Yeah. And I'm going to get it again the year after that. As long as I feed this machine,
it's magic.
It's going to spend me money, instead of going like, oh, I got my vacations I want to go on. My income's going to cover those. Why don't I think I became obsessed with what asset can I buy or can I invest in so that asset spits money just so that I can go on vacation. Right. And then I always have that asset. That money didn't disappear like it would have on my vacation route. It's there. It's giving me money to go on vacation, and it will do that every time. So I think that was like my journey, in a sense of like how my mindset got shifted because I had some extra income, and it was because I had that entrepreneurial mindset, that whole like, hey, I think, or I was obsessed with that idea. And I think all of our listeners right there already have that entrepreneurial mindset. They're already listening to this, looking for ways to invest in deeper levels.
Right. Like I would argue, like John, I think I didn't recognize this, but now that you say it, it's so obvious. You were of the mindset where your teacher salary was enough to sustain your lifestyle, your family's lifestyle. So you were, like, we'll call it living large, right? Like in your own world, in your own mind, your own perception was you had a great life. Like you had a lot of great things going for you, and you had the pension that's all taken care of. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when you started building and doing something you enjoyed, and maybe I rubbed off on you a little bit in terms of like what you might want to do with that income. The reality was like you didn't really have the motivation of money to start some of the side hustles you're doing, which I think is a learning lesson for some of the people listening. Like you really have to decide like who you are. I'm going to guess that the people who are listening were probably more like me, maybe more like Matt, where you were like, I want more income for a reason. Whereas John, I think you started doing something and found a passion, and that passion grew, and you're benefiting from it. Like your wealth is going to benefit from it. For me, I think I came at it from like a security, a fear standpoint. Like I had this like thought in my mind that I was like, well, like if I'm earning this much now and then I retire, and everyone knows like a defined benefit pension plan, like you're not going to get the same amount, you're going to get this much. And like, I think right from day one, I was like, okay, it's great to have that much, but I'm used to living on this much, which is like more, and I know if you have kids, they're going to move on, and, you'll have maybe less financial responsibilities, but what if you don't? Like what if you do? Like, what if you do have more financial responsibilities? So for me, I was like, how do I make it? And I think in my mind was like, if I could retire, but still have the same salary I have when I'm working, that would make me feel more secure. And I think that's where I came at it from. So I tried the tutoring, I tried the night school, I tried those things. Those things were hard though, because they took, again, it was like I was just working overtime. It was like I was doing the same thing I was doing during the day. Now it was in the evenings, or now it was in the summertime. And the money actually wasn't all that great. Like you didn't notice it, right? And that sort of got me down the whole entrepreneurial path, where I started thinking, what else could I do? And that's when I got my mortgage license way back when. That was right before we were having kids. Did that for a number of years. At the time, I didn't really understand marketing or online businesses. And, that was very limiting with my day schedule. Matt, you talked about time, not having control of your time. Makes it really hard to do certain activities, right? If I'm working all day and I want to be a mortgage agent, that's going to be hard. Or if you want to be a realtor, and you ran into that issue as well, Matt, when you started doing real estate. But ultimately, we were trying to find ways to sort of bump into this extra money. And I think my big key takeaway is, for those who are listening, it's like, where are you spending your money now? And is it enough, if you did nothing else, to sustain your lifestyle? And then what else could I do so that what else, that I can do it, and there's enough passion there that I'm willing to do that extra in order to generate that personal beliefs of yours, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And I think for me, that would be the big key piece, is like really deciding, like, why am I generating this extra income? And am I just spending it on something now, like because I have extra funds? Or am I doing something more intentional with those funds so that I can keep more control of my time or get my time back sooner, right? Because it doesn't mean you have to quit your job as a nurse or a doctor or, whatever you're doing. It just means that as soon as I can be financially set or secure, that I can then control all of my time, which may mean continuing to work a little longer because you like it, or it might mean taking some time off and going to Dubai, but not having to teach while you do it. So like, Matt, where's your head? Like, you hear John's story, you hear my story, like what got you actually motivated to want to, you said this something really interesting that hit me, where you were like, the only way that you can earn a greater income was to start climbing that ladder into administration or other duties in education. What was your driving factor, or do you even understand what that driving factor or force was in order to generate more income?
I think for a lot of our listeners, we're strivers. We like when I became a teacher, I wanted to be the best teacher. I wanted to become a department head right away, an instructional coach. Like, we are strivers, we are pushers. And I love, a lot of the stuff we listen to, books and podcasts talk about this convergence between entrepreneurship and being the best version of yourself. And so I've always been someone intensely interested in self-improvement and that path that converges really wonderfully with this entrepreneurial pathway of also trying to find ways to be able to generate more wealth. And not only, you guys talk about frugality a lot, and I think my own take is a little bit more so on improving your quality of life now as well as into the future. So I think, like, when I started in real estate, it had just been a goal. We had bought and sold a lot of homes together, my wife, who's also a teacher, and we had realized, definitely some nice financial benefits from that, but also some really big challenges as well, that we look on now as fond memories, but at the time were intense stress. And so I thought I'd get my real estate license as a side thing. We were investing in real estate, Kyle, you and and I
Mm-hmm.
thought it would help us. I hadn't had a lot of great experiences with realtors. And to be honest with you, one of my driving forces to become a teacher is because I didn't always have great experiences with teachers. And I just felt like I had something to offer. And so I think it was the same really landscape in real estate. I hadn't met a lot of really great realtors. And I think I felt like I wasn't God's answer to real estate, but I think I felt like I had something to contribute, or that I could do this. Just as I think a lot of the people listening are well built to be entrepreneurs, to have thriving side hustles. I got it really as a side hustle. It was just going to be something I did on top of teaching, just like we were already doing our real estate investing on top of teaching. I never intended to quit
Mm.
and quit teaching. And what happened was it just blew up. Those teacher skills that we have as being great learners, as having awesome follow through, as being really great communicators, as being incredibly well organized. All of those teacher skills, they've really crossed over into real estate in a great way. What I've had to really work on has been my mindset, because in teaching, you just come from, and again, I don't want to misspeak, but we come from a really fixed mindset. We're used to being in an environment where it's very hierarchical. We're told exactly what to do. The ministry dictates to the school board, who then dictate to the principals, who then, run their schools oftentimes as little fiefdoms. There's a lot of politicking within that school environment as well. And so I think that we end up having pretty limited mindsets, whereas, like, we think that microcosm of the school is, how do I say this without maybe offending, but I think we almost don't realize that there's a big world out there outside of the school that is the real world, with which we're so often talking about to our students. And yet we're not really part of the real world anymore, because we've had this unionized job, this pension job. Like, we're not exposed to what's really going on in the real world, despite
Yeah.
ourselves liking to be authorities on those. So, going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think that I think for our listeners, you have the skills to have a thriving side hustle. My side hustle translated into success in real estate to the point where I said, I've this now has become a mission or a calling, or John, you talked about it being a passion. And so I think it's okay for sort of mid-career to take that fork in the road. And for me, that was a decision that became like one that my real estate coach says this to me. Financially, Matt, is becoming a full-time realtor going to be a challenge financially for you? I said not at all. In fact, going back to school would have cost me several hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in potential income. So she said, okay, financially you're going to be set now being a full-time entrepreneur. You're a business owner, as a realtor, as a mortgage broker, as an insurance broker. You are an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. And then she said, how does school make you feel? And I said, well, a lot of the times you're made to feel kind of crappy, whether it's the
Mm.
school board or your principal or your colleagues or the students and parents. To me, were rarely the challenge. I think the overall impact of all that environment, though, is sometimes it didn't really make you feel that great. Being an entrepreneur, you definitely go through a lot of challenges. But as Alex Hormozy says, we talk about it all the time. He says it's the best kind of feedback loop because
Uh-huh.
everything bad that happens is really a reflection of something you could have done, should have done, might have done
Yeah.
differently. And so you learn from that constantly. And so it feeds that self improvement all of the time. And that was really an itch I
Yeah.
was trying to scratch. And so I think that that has been truly rewarding. I've seen now that I've had total freedom of time, which is actually translated into working more hours per day, more hours per week than I would have ever as a teacher, but a real satisfaction in that everything I'm doing, I have no excuses. I have no one to blame when something doesn't go well.
Right.
And the cool part about that is it's translated into success beyond anything I would have ever imagined or believed, total time freedom, and a real satisfaction that I loved teaching, but the satisfaction of being a successful entrepreneur, it is irreplaceable. It is
Mm.
truly irreplaceable because
Yeah.
you are self-made. You are totally built and totally
Yeah.
self-made, and that's a level of
Love it.
satisfaction that I could never achieve in anything else.
You're absolutely right. I love it, and that's the feeling I get as an entrepreneur as well. And I think all of our listeners, like you said, Matt, are strivers. They are at heart. They have the entrepreneurial mindset already. It's now just putting it into action and kind of getting out of your own head that you have these limiting beliefs that you can't do it. But we're three people that have done it more than once in different industries, I had to get out of my head. I as a teacher, I was wrapped, I'm still wrapped in the identity as a teacher. This is part of who I am. I am a teacher at heart, always, I think always will be, but I couldn't get out of the idea that there is no other job. If you have a teaching degree and you are a teacher, what else could you do with that degree? Like, what else could you do with that education? Like, you just don't think that you could do anything else if you wanted to leave teaching, because that's a real reality for some teachers who right now are like, I wish I could add to my income, because I know that wealthy people add their income and the middle class just replace their income. But like, how do I add to my income? I'm a teacher. You have to get out of that mindset, because there are there are other opportunities to add to that, that income in those side hustles. And I think that, having get into real estate with you two has led me to kind of become, get more boots on the ground and thinking about how do we, we're talking about investing in real estate and also, buying properties, helping other people buy properties with our JV opportunities. And what better way to like help people maximize the equity that they are, will have in their home to build their own financial, freedom and their own wealth was to get involved with becoming a mortgage broker. And that's exactly, what I did. I went through the course to become a mortgage broker, are now qualified licensed mortgage broker who is now going to be, working with people on building their own personal, their own assets and using the equity in their asset to grow their wealth. And it's not something that I knew in advance. I didn't know that you could, we talked about this in our origin stories way back at the beginning of this podcast. That is, I didn't know that, you could use the equity in your home to buy other assets or utilize in different ways to build your wealth. Like, I want to help people with that with that idea and using, using that idea to help build their wealth. And what better way than getting right, working with people to make that happen with the homes that they purchase. So that's another opportunity for people to build their wealth on the side hustle. A mortgage, becoming a mortgage broker is a real opportunity for people to add to their incomes. Now it is a full-time job to do it, but you have to be ready. And I think our audience are, it is that mindset that our audience has.
Yeah. And, I think the part that I'm really liking too, and, Matt, you had said this, is this idea for you. It's like you've entered a different chapter of your life to do something that you had no idea. Not that you didn't have an idea you were capable of it. You just thought there was a constraint on life, right? Like you had entered into the teaching profession. John, you had entered into the teaching profession. And for many people, unless they quit for, we'll call it negative reasons, right? Like they couldn't do it. Like it's like the stress was too much. They really disliked the position. With you guys, with myself, it's like we love the job. But, so it was like we could keep going, and most people do, especially those who really enjoy it. You just keep going, but it's like you saw the opportunity to do something different. And the part that I'm recognizing about myself is that I know that I would be just as happy to continue teaching. My wife's a full-time teacher and she's enjoying it. She has no plans to become an entrepreneur like we're, kind of experimenting and doing over here. But ultimately it's like, I'm so interested to see and experience life in a different way. Right. And we're already doing that. John and I are doing that. Matt, you've been doing it now for a couple years, where it's like, wow, I had this like 17-year routine of like exactly how every single year would go. Like the day after Labor Day looked and sounded the exact same way for me for 17 years. Like, and I knew exactly where I would be, at least within one of 71 buildings in my district, like that's where I would be. John was at the same school. Matt, you were at the same school. And, now it's like, I'm so like blown away by this idea that it's like we have one life to live, and you get to decide what that story looks and sounds like. And for some people listening, like, again, don't go just quit your job because we're experimenting in this land. But I look at it and I go, wow, I'm learning so much about myself, and I'm learning that, this idea, John, you're talking about building businesses. Matt, you're talking about like being able to provide a service to the world that you feel was lacking for you, right? In teaching and in real estate. For me, it's this idea that I'm like, holy smokes, I've been so passionate about finance for so long, investing, finance. I'm writing my provincial license for insurance, agents. And I am just so excited at this opportunity to do something I'm so passionate about. Like when I've had so many phone calls with friends, family, and strangers from Invested Teacher who have come to me and said, like, I don't understand how whole life works, or like this infinite banking idea, or how can you build a wealth plan so that I don't have to pay taxes, or my heirs don't have to pay taxes once I pass. For people to be asking me that because their agents are unable to provide that for them. Now, there are some that are very knowledgeable out there, very knowledgeable, but I would say there are few. And I would say even locally here in like Windsor, Essex, like I don't know of any. If you're listening and you are that person, reach out. I'd love to meet you for a coffee. But I'm like, wow, I can go out and I can provide this learning opportunity, which will not only help people with learning, but potentially change their financial future for their life, but also the life of their next generation. To me, that is something I'm so excited to do. Cause like you had said there, Matt, it's like, I will know and I will get to experience the start to finish portion of that experience. Whereas like in education, you actually don't get that. That's the sad reality. Like you get students for like this semester, and it's like, you get to try your best for them to learn something, but it's like to be able to actually help someone craft that plan and set them on that journey and be following up with them and ensuring that, they're their friends and family are also taken care of, and that they're welcomed into this like super safe and predictable way of building their wealth for them and their family. To me, I'm super excited about it because I'm like, wow, this is something I do on my spare time. And now I'm going to actually like do this as a part of my career, part of my regular income. That to me is just mind blowing and super exciting.
So exciting. And it's amazing that John has now just officially launched his mortgage business, and really looking forward to collaborating on that. And Kyle, you're coming up on getting your official license, for insurance, and sharing this journey with you guys has been a lot of fun. And I think we've said it before. If you're someone who wants, like, one of my questions I asked myself was, I had 13 years to retire. I said, I basically know, as you just said, Kyle, what every single day of those next 13 years could look like. And if you're someone who wants predictability, Gary Vee talks about this all the time. If you want to be in the golf league, the Wednesday night softball
Yeah.
league, and that's what makes you happy, go for it. This isn't about judging anyone, so if you want
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
predictability, if you want that level of safety, if your risk tolerance is low, that's okay. That's okay. There's lots of people that are in that boat, and
Yep.
I applaud you for that. I think our listeners are those strivers. John, you talked about loving building something. I think our listeners are builders. They're people who are
Mm-hmm.
looking
Mm-hmm.
for more out of life, and I think, Kyle, you talked about it in some, like, shouldn't sound cheesy, but it's like, legitimately, if we have one life to live here, when you talk to older people, and when you there's some great books out there on the regrets of the dying. It's like, you look back, and I want to say, I think we can all safely say that we are taking, the bull by the horns, that we're trying to live life to its fullest. And
Mm-hmm.
I would like to be able to say at the end of my days that I chose the adventurous route, and that I chose the path less traveled. And being an entrepreneur is that. I will always be grateful for those safe years as a teacher that made me, that fulfilled me. But I think it's okay for all of us to say, the three of us, and certainly our listeners, there can be more out there. And we're all on a path to discover that and to achieve that. And as we say in the intro to our show, there's successes and then there's failures as well. And I think we have endured all of both of those things, all three of us, and we will continue to as we move this forward. But it's created a lot of excitement in our life. And I'm really grateful for this pathway with the two of you guys, that we get to do it together. And through this podcast, we get to share it with others.
Great way to, I think, end, Matt, in thinking about reflection, in reflection that our listeners having right now in are they, like you said, they are the strivers, they are the builders. And how close are you into, starting, the building or the striving for what you're looking for? Or, maybe you're already in it. You've already taken the step and you're on your journey as well. Everyone has to kind of do that self-reflection, that self-assessment right now of where you are. And I think if you want to be that, you are that, you have that entrepreneurial mindset, it's have you taken the step? And if you haven't, why not? So let's get moving and let's get going, because I think that's the way that you're going to build the wealth in the freedom that you're really after, just like we have.
Awesome. I know that we spoke through our own personal experiences, our own context, but ultimately, I think the big message I hope you're getting is that you need to find a way, if you're seeking what we're seeking, which is like something maybe beyond, say, the defined pension plan, or maybe it's the undefined pension plan where it's a match plan at your company or wherever you're working. If you're seeking something beyond that when it comes to the wealth building journey, you have to have a plan, you have to take action, and you're going to have to find funds somewhere. So you've got a couple options. Like, one of them in our blueprint was you cut back on your expenses. You live more frugally, right? And for some people, that's fine, because they're like, the payoff for them, it's worth it. For other people, like, actually, I really enjoy my lifestyle and I enjoy spending the paycheck that comes in each and every week, month, whatever it is. That's awesome too. But then now the question is, how are you going to earn that little bit of extra that's going to allow you to get to the investing, right? You need to find that capital somewhere, and it's up to you how you do it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it all comes back to your plan. Like, what is that plan? And if you're just spending your paycheck and you're not thinking about, the level of happiness or why you're doing it or whether it's an intentional move, maybe you need to pause for a second. John's saying get moving, sure, but pause for a second and ask yourself, what is it that you actually want? You can think all the way to Matt's, deathbed comment is like when you're there. It's like when you look back, is what you're doing right now exactly what you think you're going to be happy that you did? Or is there something different? And that's a hard question to ask. You won't come, to any sort of hard conclusions here. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think being a little bit, outside of the norm, I think is what a lot of people are going to be looking for, right? Like for me, I want people to look back at me and go like, he did teaching, he did real estate investing, he did insurance, he did a math consulting business with a good friend and partner. He did all of these different things because he wanted to do them, not because he was just floating around job to job, but because he wanted to do it. He wanted the experience to do it. So what does that look like for you? What does that plan look like for you? And of course, if you need someone to help coach you through that, reach out to us. Head over to the investedteacher.com website. We've got some buttons there where you can opt into our email. We've got our book list over at investedteacher.com/books. And you can, of course, book a call with us to discuss your plan. Like, where are you at? Where's your headspace? What is it that you're trying to achieve? We might be able to point you in a direction as to, hey, what your immediate next step might be for you, for your family, for your legacy. So hopefully you gained something from this. And of course, if you did, we would so appreciate a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever platform you're on. It goes a long way for us to reach more invested students just like you.
Thanks, Kyle. A reminder to our listeners that all links, resources, and transcripts from this episode can be found over on the website. That's investedteacher.com/episode 33. That's investedteacher.com/episode 33.
All right. Invested students, class dismissed.
Hey there, friends. This is just a reminder that the content from this show is intended for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. We look forward to seeing you next time.